All right, welcome to episode 2 of Between the Lines. I am the pet man, Matt Morrow. Once again, Between the Lines is our new show, or my new show, I should say. We go deeper into high school football in the Charlotte metro area with games analysis, team shoutouts, top team discussions. Some episodes will have pet man players. We won't have them tonight because we're going to do those on the main show tomorrow, and then we've got some more things that we can do with this show. Glad that you're here joining me. I had several requests to hear the 1980s version of our intro song that we use for actually this show. Um, so I'm gonna play the um, the different version of this. Well, actually, I'll play the first intro first, and then I'll play that when we come out of that. So y'all bear with me. I'm gonna get the intro up, and then we'll come back and I'll let you hear the alternate version, which is really interesting, and then we'll start.
You see them on CFI. We on it all night. 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 Touchdown! Highlights and rankings. They cover the toughest there in America. Charlotte football insiders. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Or you can catch them on their podcast. All over the state with Hoof, Mount Creek, Myers Park, Audrey Kell, West Charlotte, Olympic, Providence Day, Mountain Island Charter, and so many more. CFI, we on it all night. 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 CFI, we on it all night.
All right, a little technical issue there. Sorry about that. That was the intro for this show with the theme song created by EJ Nicholson. Once again, I appreciate that. But he also created a couple other versions, and I'm going to play a snippet of the 80s rock version of that theme song. If I think I got it right here. Let's see. Here we go. Riveting, I know.
CFI, for the inside scoop, you gotta go to the CFI. CFI.
Oh no, wait. Some of y'all like that, I know. Okay, that's enough of that. You have to be in a certain mood to play that, but there's another version too that didn't make the cut. But yeah. I figured that. That's why we chose that one for the theme song. Oh man! All right, well, I appreciate y'all bearing with me on that. I had people that wanted to hear it, so they'll hear it in the playback. But anyway, Good to have you, Lanisha and Nia. Kareem Chavez Lopez, good to see you, man. As always. All right. Let's get started. All right. This is our second show, like I said in the intro. And I want to start with the CMS Best of Last rankings. I put these out earlier today. We did have some changes, obviously, with what happened last week, which we'll obviously get into as the show goes along. But at the top, no changes. You know, Huff with a big win over Independence. West Charlotte bouncing back with a big win over Monroe. Myers Park with a huge win over Weddington. That moves them up to number 3. Mallard Creek with a huge win out of state against not Maury. That was Cardinal Gibbons. Verena out of Virginia moves them up to number 4. Palisades defense playing really well. We'll talk about that a little later on, but that moves them up to 5. Independence with the tough loss to Huff falls to 6. Butler, the close one over Corvian, goes up to 7. RGKL losing to Porter Ridge drops to 8. North Met continues to impress. Big win over South Iredale moves them to 9. Chambers with a nice win over Hopewell that moves them into the top 10. Providence drops after a tough loss to East Lincoln. South Meck moves up a spot with a close win over Community School Davidson. Olympic dropping 1 spot with the loss to Palisades. No change with Rocky River. Harding moves up 2 spots. I saw them in person last week as they beat East Meck 22-6. Hopewell with the loss to Chambers drops 1 spot. West Meck drops 1 spot with their loss. No change with Valentine Ridge, Berry, East Meck, or Garinger. So that is the CMS Best of Last this week. And we'll have some big games this week once again that we'll talk about. Some tonight, some on tomorrow's show with the guys on Football Focus Weekly. That could really, flip this around once again. We got West Charlotte going down to play Rock Hill South Point. We saw what they did against Huff in week 1. It's not going to be easy. Mallard Creek with another tough game. Even though if they lose, it may not affect them here because they're playing a nationally recognized Grayson team out of Georgia who's undefeated. Independence and Charlotte Christian is going to be in a good game. Butler against Irmo, South Carolina, Aaron Brand, and those guys. That's never easy. That's going to be a good game. That was a great game last year up here at Butler. They're going down to Irmo this year. And then we'll get into other matchups, as this show goes along and tomorrow on Football Focus Weekly. So let's see if we got some thoughts here on the best of last. Let's see. Mizzle. All right, Mizzle. You know what? I'm going to do? I'm going to send you a message right now because you keep telling me you want to come on. And I keep telling you to send me a message, and then I forget to send you a message. So I'm sending you a message live on the show right now that says, please send me a message if you want to come on the show tomorrow's show on Football Focus Weekly. So I'm typing. I'm literally doing this live. I never do this, but I'm going to do it so I know it gets done. Riveting. All right. Message sent. Now. Now that it's done, we'll see. Lanisha says Chambers will keep moving up. I'm really impressed with Chambers. Catherine Bunnerlin, Charles Johnson, and those guys are doing a great job to be 2-0 right now. I think a lot of it coming into the season was, nobody really knew what to expect because we hadn't seen obviously Captain Munderland be a head coach or, to my knowledge, Charles Johnson be a defense coordinator on the high school level. So it's kudos. Those guys are playing well. They got players that are stepping up. Zion Haley had a big game last week. You guys sent me some names. I took a look at some of those guys, and those players are making plays in space and are very athletic and dynamic. And, it's really, really good. It's fun to watch. And, I will say this, Nia, I hope I'm saying that right. Chambers has always had, athletes and talent. That's always, ever since that school opened and when they were advanced back in the late 90s and early 2000s. They've always had talent. And I'll tell you a little known fact, and I'm sure it's little known now. But when I was in high school, they played Harding when I played at Harding in 1990. Oh, was it 97, I believe? Um, they got their first win against us at Harding. I think it was 14-12. And it was funny. Vance was using our field as their home field because it wasn't ready yet for their first year. And that last game, they played this last game of the season, and it was a home game for them. And they were wanting to use the home sideline. And we were like, okay, no. Like, you can wear your home jerseys, but this is our stadium. So I actually got hurt in that game in the first half off of a late hit that still bugs me to this day. And it was so bad, the Vance guys came over to me and apologized. Their captains came over and apologized because, the guy that did it wasn't a leader. He didn't have respect, for the game when it happened. And anyway, not to get on my soapbox. They had a quarterback by the name of Paul Trough who was really good, man. He was really good. And last I heard, he was coaching at the college level. And, he was a heck of a player, man. Good dude. But that from the start, they've always had talent, man. And, when you have good coaches, when you can, maximize the talent you have and put them in positions to be successful. And, they're doing a good job of that. And then Lanesha is echoing that sentiment. So there you go. Good stuff. Good stuff right there. All right. We'll get into more of Chambers and some of these other teams here in the best of last here shortly. So good deal. All right. Now we can go into our classification breakdowns. Let's look at the top Charlotte area 8A teams. No changes on this list from excuse me. From last week, as we have Huff winning over Independence. Micah Bright, I thought, was the key player in that game. He had 2 interceptions, one of those being a pick 6 in that victory. He's a very hard-working and talented young man. Let me tell you, he worked out hard in the offseason. He changed his body. He did well at our winter showcase. And then, he was able to kind of, change schools. And, now he's proving that, even throwing away from Samari Matthews, you're not going to find a lot of success, and that's what a lot of teams do for good reason. So that's just adding to, Huff's dynamic ability as a defense, because you start thinking about it. You think about the young man Johnson who had the interception to end the game against South Point. That's another good secondary player. You think about Jackson Heath, who's really good back there in the secondary. Now you got Micah Bright playing well. Like, they just rotate through guys that can play well back there. And then you put that on top of what the dynamic duo inside is doing at the linebacker spot with Ryan Peterson and LJ Porter. It's tough. It's tough to deal with. Jason Wilkerson, number 11, has also made some good plays, in that secondary also. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention him also. Not to mention Johnson, that's Drew Johnson, number 28, at the defensive back spot. So, they got a lot of talent that plays well together. They all step up and kind of rise to the occasion. And I think you're going to see different defenders, make plays throughout the season. And they could have, big games like Micah did here. So definitely one of our top 8A teams in Charlotte. Now on to the West Charlotte Lions. Of course, the big win over Monroe was 47-0. And then Jamori Nichols, once again, I couldn't choose anybody else. I mean, he had such a great game. 4 touchdown passes all in the first half. Really high completion percentage, really good accuracy, distributing the ball to his playmakers and letting them run and make plays in space. It's just really, really fun to watch. If you like good quarterback play, that's one of the teams you definitely are really want to follow there. Mallard Creek, as I said earlier, they won in Virginia. I might have the wrong Virginia team on there. I'm not sure, but I want to highlight their defense. They won that game 3-0, and it's really hard to do. I saw one of the highlights where it was first and goal from the 1 for the team out of Virginia, and Mallard Creek had a incredible stand to keep them out of the end zone. And I believe they scored that field goal in the third quarter, late in third quarter. So that team is 2-0. And, coming into the season, when you looked at their schedule, you could conceivably say they were going to be maybe 1-5 or 0-6 with those first 6 games that they had. And I'm going to pull up their schedule, and I'll switch the graphic around, so we can all kind of take a look at it together, and I can show you what I'm talking about, because it is incredibly difficult. So bear with me 1 second here. We're going to switch this screen to a schedule view. Okay. All right, I'll see if I can make that a little bigger. Oh, I hate Max Prep for all these ads. It is so aggravating. Okay, we'll make that a little smaller so we can kind of take that in. Okay. That's the school, Warwick in Virginia. That's who they beat. So they started out with Rolesville. They beat them. They beat Warwick out of Virginia last week. Now they're playing Grayson. Then they got Myers Park, and we've seen how good Myers Park is after they beat Weddington last week, who we're getting ready to talk about. Then Cardinal Gibbons, who also beat the team out of Virginia Maury, which is the correct team that Cardinal Gibbons beat. And they had a long winning streak. I think that they had a 39-game winning streak, and Cardinal Gibbons ended that. And then they've got West Charlotte. So, those first 6 games are just really impressive, and they're 2-0 starting out with this stretch. Now, I don't think anyone's expecting them to go down there and beat Grayson in Georgia, but if they do, I'll tell you right now, I'll be hard pressed not to put them in the number 1 spot, because that team down there has a ton of college level talent. Now I know their quarterback, who's committed to North Carolina, by the way, is hurt, and he's out for the season apparently. So they are playing with a backup quarterback, and we do see Mallard Creek has won 2 different ways. So you see the first game, 36 points on offense. Second game, no points on defense. So the offense kind of carried the weight in week 1. Defense carried the weight in week 2. Good teams find ways to win in different, different styles. And that's the biggest thing that's impressed me so far in this, 2025 version of Mallard Creek. They're not only winning with defense like, the Mallard Creek teams of the past. They're finding ways to score points. They're spreading the offense around. They're throwing the ball downfield. They're making plays in space. It's interesting. It's interesting. It's dynamic. And, with these next 4 games coming up, we'll see how good this team is. They could be really, really good, but, we'll definitely know. There won't be any secrets about Mallard Creek over these next few weeks. That's for sure. All right, let's see here. We're going to switch back to the other one. As I alluded to, Myers Park, with their win over Weddington, Cam Portis, the DB, 2 interceptions, in that game against Weddington to help them get that victory. And one of the things that people don't know, or they don't, realize about Weddington is one of their big reasons for success is they don't dang on turn the football over, man. Like Weddington is so plus on the plus minus when it comes to turnover ratio. That's why they're usually very successful, but they turn the ball over, which is very, very rare. And Myers Park made them pay for those turnovers. As I said before, they have a great pass rush. They have talent in the secondary, obviously, right here with Cam Portis. And, offensively, they're making plays. Their quarterback, Ramir Watson, stepped up and played a really good game. He got the ball out to, their playmakers and Chaz Portis and Brody Keefe. Brody Keefe made an amazing catch that Shaquan, our guy, Shea shot him. He got highlights from that game. We put that out on social media a few days ago. It was really, really impressive. So the Mustangs are really, really playing well right now. And since we got the schedule up, let's go flip over to Myers Park's schedule, and we can kind of go through what they've got coming up here. And I'll switch that view back so we can look at it together. So we're going to do that. There we go. All right, so there's the victory over Weddington right there. So this week they've got Providence. That is a rival game. When I coached at Myers Park, that was a big deal. So they should have a pretty good crowd for that one. It's their first home game too. So if you've never seen Myers Park play at home, the student section at Myers Park is probably the best in Charlotte. They really get behind their team, and it's fun. It's a fun atmosphere. Then that showdown against Mallard Creek. That next week will be a big game. Then Charlotte Christian. That'll be a big one as well. And those two schools are pretty close to each other. So there's probably some crossover with, people knowing people, and there should be, a nice atmosphere over at Christian. So the next 3 weeks, we got a rival game, a big game, and a big game. So, Myers Park will still be in the spotlight here. And if they come through that 3-0, we'll know that they are really real, and they'll be a threat, in the 8A classification for sure. All right. I see a lot of comments here. Let's see here. Yes, Mike, we know you love Dub C. We know that. AJ1, very young. Yeah, that's the thing about it. They're playing a lot of sophomores and freshmen on the varsity, and excuse me. And I think that's the most impressive part of it too. I mean, a lot of their young guys we have ranked in the state on Prep Red Zone. If you start looking at the 2028 class, especially, that's a really strong class from Mallard Creek. So this is not like it's a 1-year deal. Like, they just lost 40 seniors last year. So yeah. They were not expected to start this strong, but that's a testament to Coach Tinsley and his staff and what they're doing over there. It is really good stuff. All right. Well, let's switch back to the graphic that I know is hard to see. We'll work on that one. The last team on here, Craig, thank you for your comment. This sets up perfectly. So Palisades, with their win last week over Olympic, 26-0. I want to talk about their defense because they've only given up 2 points all season in playing Berry and Olympic. And, you can talk about level of competition, but even that, even when, the game's out of reach and you're taking out your starters and you're putting in your backups, and, they might let one or two, touchdowns happen. That doesn't happen. There's no drop off. The team Palisades is very deep, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and that's really been impressive so far. And then Craig Fayal wants to add in right here. Nick Rankin had 3 touchdowns in the win against Olympic, 1 pick six that got called back. Great 2-way player. Yeah, absolutely. I've written about Nick. I put him in our top 5 rankings that we do in the offseason as a defensive back, but obviously he can really make some plays on offense as well. And he definitely is a really good 2-way player here in Charlotte, and you could say the state, because he's ranked pretty high in the state on Prep Red Zone as well. So he's a dynamic guy with the ball in his hands. He makes things happen, and for that Palisades team, that's really important. I think they've got some really strong players all across the board. When you start looking at every position, I think Cole Huff at quarterback. I just watched some of his highlights today. He's really putting the ball where it needs to be consistently in their offense in terms of the passing game. I like a couple of their guys. I think Jelani Leggett, number one, has brought them something that it adds an element to their offense that they didn't have as much last season, in my opinion, in the passing game and from a receiver standpoint. And then, of course, we know their offensive line is really good. And the funny thing is, I think more people should be talking about them. I don't understand why. And I can't speak for anybody else, but I think they should. I think they should be getting a little more attention. And that'll come. That'll come. Matter of fact, we're going to go to the Palisades schedule, and let's take a look and see what they've got coming up here, because I know they got some showcase games here coming up, and we'll look at that together and kind of talk through that here briefly. Let's see here. Okay. I wish we had another system other than Max Preps, because they are really trying to push a bunch of ads these days. It is not fun to navigate. All right, so let's take a look at Palisades schedule here. So they got Clover this week. This is at Palisades. So Clover's a pretty good team out of South Carolina. Then they got Chambers, and Chambers could come into that game undefeated. Chambers is playing Harding this week. So you look at it on paper, Chambers is probably favored to win that game. So we could have an undefeated showdown between Palisades and Chambers that should get some attention. Then they've got Independence, and that game should get some attention as well. So after this week, because, here in Charlotte, I don't know if a lot of people know about Clover necessarily. So I don't know how many, eyes that game will get. But then Chambers and Independence with the undefeated Palisades team, that will get some attention. And maybe somebody, or some people will show them a little more love. But once again, I've been high on them, from the start of the season. And so far they're going out there and, showing that, they are a team to be reckoned with, especially on the defensive side of football. Kaye Sace checking in says Nick Rankin, aka Duda, is a special talent. Yeah, absolutely. I don't disagree with you one bit on that one. All right, let's switch back and we'll go to 7A team. So Weddington lost to Myers Park. I think the quarterback Walker Powell will bounce back, and he'll definitely play better. He's their key player. Independence with a tough loss to Huff. Jaden Jones only got 5 carries in that loss to Huff. So obviously he's the one that makes it go over there. And he'll bounce back and play a lot better. Butler, 14-9 victory over Corvian. I think perseverance is their key player. That's happened in both of their games so far. The win over Olympic, they were down at the halftime, had to make adjustments, come back to win that one. And then against Corvian, they were down, albeit it was only 3-0 at halftime. They had to come back and figure it out and win. So that team already showing traits of head coach Brian Hales, which is, really, really impressive for a team that's been, kind of trying to figure it out, as they go along. Lake Norman, really impressive. Had a big win over Sun Valley. Alan Bruno Jones is the key player. They had some people leave the program in the offseason, and this young man stepped up, had 4 touchdowns on the ground, tying a school record in that victory. It's good stuff. Lake Norman really, really looking good so far. And I think no, that should be Mount Tabor they defeated, not Sun Valley. Excuse me. So that was an impressive win on the road for Lake Norman. Mooresville defeated Sun Valley. Their key player was Jadarius McCombs. Running back only played in the second half, but he had 139 yards rushing on only 9 carries. And in that second half, Mooresville broke a 14-14 halftime tie to run away with a big win. I believe that final score was 49-14 in that one. Wow. So Mooresville getting back into the win column. Sun Valley, kind of struggling at 0-2, trying to figure some things out. All right. And then 6A, Ashbrook with a big win over Berry. Savion Lindsay was their key player. He had over 150 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns in that win. Kings Mountain, a close win over Burns, but Lakin Feimster at linebacker really played well in that one. I believe he had 17 tackles and a couple tackles for loss thrown in there as well. Statesville with a nice win over East Surrey. They have a sophomore quarterback in Jakota Harrington, who's really playing well for those guys. Statesville's always going to be good on defense. If they find consistency on offense like they have so far, they're going to be a tough out. Charlotte Catholic, that should be a win over Charlotte Christian. My graphic guy is going to get fired. But that's my fault for not double checking. But that was a win over Charlotte Christian. The kicker, Aiden Flynn, is the key player in that one because he made 3 field goals and they won 16-7. So he's literally the difference in them winning that game. And then I wanted to throw in Watauga. And so now I know it's a mountain team, but we started looking at 6A. You always got to, figure Watauga in there. They defeated TC Roberson, and they've got a good quarterback. His name is Cade Keller. If you don't keep up with Watauga, they had a guy who was really good for the past few years, graduate last year. He was everything for their offense. And there was a big question coming into this season, who was going to step up and be the guy for them. And this guy, Cade Keller, is throwing the football well. They're, balanced offensively. They're not your typical mountain team where they just run, and then try to slow the game down. No, they can throw the ball, and he's a big reason why. He is a senior. But Watauga's going to be there in the playoffs once again. And if history, repeats itself, somebody in Charlotte is going to have to go to Watauga. And they're going to have to see them. And it won't be an easy game. That's for sure. All right. Now that graphic looks better. So time for some shout outs. These are teams who played really great last week. And I got to start out with North Meck. Big win over South Iredell, 39-13. I think I mentioned it earlier, to go to 2-0. We felt like North Meck was a good team, but they've won their first 2 games in dominant fashion. I don't know if anyone expected the offensive outburst that they've shown so far. Defensively, traditionally, they're always tough, but offensively, they have been showing a lot. And I'm going to jump to the North Meck schedule because I made reference to it a couple times, but they have a chance to start out 5-0 because we think they'll be favored in their next 3 games here. So I'm going to pull it up and we can look at it together here as soon as my computer decides to cooperate with me. All right. Schedule. All right, there we go. So let's switch over once again. All right, so you see the first game, they beat Rocky River 42-6, and then there's that South Iredell game last week. So this week they've got Hunter Huss out of Gastonia. And Hunter Huss has some offensive ability, but their strength is defense. So I feel like they can get the pass rush going and give Hunter Huss some trouble, from that perspective. Then they got East Meck, who's a little bit down, and then Hopewell. And Hopewell, that is a rival game. They play for, I think they call it the Battle of the Shield. So, Hopewell will be fired up for that one. But I think North Meck, based on how they played so far, would be favored. So you can see right here, they get past Hunter Huss, East Meck, Hopewell, they're 5-0. Then they've got a bye week, and then they go to that conference playing the Meck Power 6. Now, that's where it gets interesting because if they're 5-0, they're riding high with confidence, playing to the best of their abilities. Can they give some of these teams, some trouble? possibly, just thinking about it. Mallard Creek's been playing out of this world, but they got 2 weeks to get ready for Mallard Creek. Can they come up with something to give them some trouble? Possibly so. I haven't seen North Meck in person yet. They're on my short list. I might see them this week. Not sure yet. So I do want to see him soon, though. So I'm going to see him at some point here pretty soon because I really want to see, how this team is playing so well right now. But that being said, let's switch back to the other graphic here. And we got to see, we got a couple comments here. That's okay, Kim. I think some people still don't know that the Tuesday show exists. As if Karen Belt doesn't know, then I've got to do a better job of promoting it. But that'll happen. That'll happen. It's all good. Let's see. Oh, I think Karen's a little behind on the stream there, but that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, Huff played really well in that game. You can't take anything away from it. I've told, you guys don't know, but I talked to a lot of, fans, and I talked to a lot of parents, and then I talked to some coaches too. And, it's week 2. You don't get panicked over stuff that happens on week 2, man. It's way early. It's way early. I saw High School OT was doing playoff projections. I mean, God bless them. They're good guys over there, but you don't even start thinking about playoffs until you get, maybe 1 or 2 games in the conference play, But anyway, it's week 2. It's no reason to, get panicked or anything like that. You got a lot of time still to go back, correct mistakes, look at film, and try to get better. That's why you go out and you play teams like Huff in the non-conference, so you see where you are. You challenge yourself, and then where you stand. So that's okay. Y'all gonna be just fine over there at Independence. There's a lot of talent and a lot of good coaching on that team. We talked about Palisades. For sure. So when you hear it on the playback, you'll enjoy that. And yeah, Kanye, I don't know. Whatever drives the metrics, I guess that's what works. Everybody loves talking about the playoffs, I guess. I don't know. You won't hear it on this show for a while. I can promise you that. A.L. Brown with a big game in the Bell game, winning over Concord. 38-3 was the final score. That's 11 consecutive wins for A.L. Brown. And they really bounced back after a tough loss to Porter Ridge in week 1. So we'll see. We'll see if that gets A.L. Brown going this season. A lot of people expect them to be pretty good. They had a really good JV team last year, and a lot of those guys are moving up to varsity this year. So Austin Settles, the quarterback, is a player. He's a player for them. So really excited to see how A.L. Brown does. It's going to be a good race between them and Olympic, and actually a couple other teams in that Mecklenburg-Cabarrus, hybrid conference. Whose name I can't remember these conference names. It's going to take me a while. But then that hybrid conference between Mecklenburg County and Cabarrus County, I think, is wide open for sure. Porter Ridge 2-0. They had a good win over RGKL last week, 24-7. Standout guy, Ryshawn Elmore, committed to East Carolina. He's playing some running back for Porter Ridge and doing pretty well with it. He's typically a receiver, but he's looking impressive. I think for them, and I've seen this with a couple teams, they're just getting the ball into their playmakers' hands and letting them go to work, and it's really been successful for them so far. And they're going to be a team to watch in Union County. Want to shout out 3 head coaches getting their first wins as head coaches. Christ the King, Charlie Jackson picking up their first win over South Lake Christian last week. Of course, I was at Harding and East Mac. I saw Harding defeat East Mac and interviewed their head coach, Terrence Cunningham. Congratulations to him once again. And then Cannon School got their first win, and that's Jamal Birch. In his first win at Cannon School as their head coach. So, congratulations to all 3 of those guys working hard and getting wins on the board, and now trying to build on it going into week 3. Providence Day, and I say this kind of tongue-in-cheek, but quietly, because a lot of people hadn't talked about it because it was so impressive. And I think some of that's dampened because the way Rolesville kind of played against Mallard Creek, but still a good team. Providence Day went up to Rolesville and had a dominant victory, 38-10, to go to 2-0 on the season. The game was never close. They got a lot of pressure on the quarterback, led by Griff Galloway, who had a couple sacks and tackles for loss in that one. So they're going to be one of the main teams down in the private sector in the NCISAA to make a run at a state championship. East Lincoln, I'm sure if you're watching the show, you've heard some stuff about them. They had a big win over Providence last week, 55-24. They are really scoring a lot of points up there. Their quarterback, Grant Lawless, is really, really good. They also have a running back who is really talented and making plays. I believe his name is, Palmore, number 6. He rushed for over 100 yards last week. So when you've got a combination of a quarterback who can really throw it and then a running back who can take advantage of light boxes when you're trying to, cover the pass, it's a nice mix. I want to take a look at East Lincoln's schedule because, one of the things that I want to see is when they're going to play someone who is going to be a kind of a comparable threat to what they're doing on both sides of the ball here. So I'm going to pull up their schedule and then we can look at it together, kind of like what we've been doing on some of the other teams here. And I got to close another ad. All right. And we have the schedule. So we're going to switch that over. All right. So East Lincoln week 1, they knocked off South Iredell in a shootout, 60-35. Providence 55-24. This week they've got Newton Conover, Bandy's, North Lincoln. So the thing with East Lincoln is I don't think they're going to play anyone who's going to shut down their offense here because you just look through the schedule. Hickory could, and I think that's going to be a really big game for a conference title. Maiden will have some offensive firepower for sure. So I think that toward the end of the season, they're going to get some tests, as a team to where it may be shootout situations in those 2 games because both of those teams, have some offensive firepower. Hickory might have enough on defense to slow them down. But up until that point, I don't think they're going to play anyone that's going to slow these guys down for what they got offensively because you start thinking about their threats with Jackson, Davis Beam and Jackson Dollar, the talented tight end, who's a 5-star kind of player. They're gonna be really good. They're gonna be ranked high in the state, and everyone loves offense. And they're gonna have a lot of offensive numbers and statistics and things like that. So it's gonna be interesting. And see these ads popping up, man. That's crazy. But anyway, they're a team to watch in 5A for sure. And then Stuart Kramer down in Gaston County, 2-0. They defeated North Gaston 34-27 last week. Shout out to them for a good start to the season. They've been down for several years and now playing some good football. So good job to them. All right. Games to watch Friday night. We got Berry at Rocky River. Both teams 0-2. They both need a victory to kind of turn the tide and get their season going in the right direction. Walkertown comes down to West Rowan. Walkertown's 2-0 on the season, putting up a lot of offensive numbers in impressive fashion. West Rowan coming off a tough loss to Davie County 30-20, but they can run the football. I think that's going to be West Rowan's game plan right here to kind of try to slow the game down and keep the Walkertown offense off the field. But no one has slowed down Walkertown yet. They have really looked good so far. East Rowan at Piedmont. East Rowan 2-0 after having a very long losing streak. Shout out to the Mustangs, man. They're playing good football, ball control football, good defense. Piedmont also coming off a victory. But can East Rowan go to 3-0? That would be something. That you guys don't know. I know no one really keeps up with Rowan County football, but it is a minor miracle that East Rowan is 2-0 right now. After all the struggles that they've had throughout, oh my gosh, the past several years. When I played East Rowan in high school, they were good. I mean, they were like, they were rivaling A.L. Brown and Concord back in the old South Piedmont 3A conference. They were right there on that level. So it's good to see, those guys be good again. And I'm really happy for, those fans over at Granite Quarry. Good people down there. As we talked about earlier in the show, Butler at Irmo. It's a big step up in competition for the Bulldogs in this one, going down to South Carolina, playing a contender in Irmo and Aaron Brand. If you don't know where Irmo is, it's right outside of Columbia, South Carolina. Been down there. It's a nice place. They have a very nice facility. This was a good game last year. I think it was in overtime. Butler just wasn't able to get a 2-point conversion to pull that one out. So it'll be interesting to see what, Coach Hales has cooked up. And you talk about historical Charlotte battles, Butler and Vance back in the day. Oh my gosh. I remember we covered a Butler and Vance playoff game that went to overtime. And it was a incredible game that Vance ended up winning. It was when Kingsley Affetti was the quarterback at Vance, and Davis Cheek was the quarterback at Butler. Some of you Charlotte historians might remember those names. My goodness, what a football game. Oh, man. I see you guys' comments. I'll get to those in a second. But anyway, Garinger to East Meck. Can Garinger get their second win on the season? We saw East Meck last week. They led Harding at halftime. Based on the rankings, this is going to be a competitive game. If Garinger is improved, I think they've got a shot. They got a shot here. East Meck, James Bailey the third is their best player. And he plays a little bit of everything for him. He'll play some Wildcat quarterback. He plays receiver. He plays safety. That's the guy that Garinger was going to have to control to try to get their second victory on the season. But I think they've got a shot. I really do think they've got a shot here. A sneaky good game this week. West Forsyth coming down from Winston-Salem to play Porter Ridge. We saw West Forsyth. They were hanging in there with Grimsley. But Grimsley was able to pull that one out by 2 touchdowns. They can really run the football. Moses Morris, a name that you might know from when he was at Lake Norman. He's now at West Forsyth. They've got a really good offensive line. Porter Ridge, as we just talked about, with Ryshawn Elmore. If you like to see good running backs, that's a place you definitely want to go, because those are going to be 2 talented running backs on the field on Friday night. We talked about Clover at Palisades earlier. If you want to have a point of reference, Chambers beat Clover in week 1. So that's the kind of level of team Palisades is playing here. I really want to see how the Pumas defense can continue to be dominant here, because I don't think not too long ago, Clover had a pretty potent offensive attack against Palisades. So I'm really looking forward to that matchup to see, how dominant that Pumas defense can be. Really excited to see that. It's on our short list of games, but I don't know if we'll be able to get down there in time of the way my schedule looks Friday. But that's a good one. Weddington and Monroe. You don't see this a lot. Both Weddington and Monroe coming off losses. I can't even remember the last time that happened when they both lost in the same week. But we had that last week when Weddington losing to Myers Park and Monroe losing to West Charlotte. They're both looking to bounce back and get back into the win column. On paper, you favor Weddington here, just off of really more so the numbers more than anything. They're definitely deeper than Monroe. I think that's, how they're going to kind of wear them down in this one. And then the Air Traffic Classic is what this game was called a couple years ago. But I don't know if it's still called that, but Westmeck and Olympic, they're both 0-2, and someone's going to get a win on a Friday night that really needs it. Westmeck's playing with a freshman quarterback, and Olympic is playing kind of a Wildcat style while their quarterback, Chance Cato's been out with injury. So, of course, in high school, we don't get injury reports. Don't know when, he's going to be back on the field. But hopefully it's real soon because, I enjoy seeing a young man, play and throw the football. But good luck to both of those teams on Friday night. All right, so in the comments, Luke Sabo says J.M. Robinson against AC Reynolds is a game to watch. Yeah, I think that's a good football game. I saw, J.M. Robinson played really well in defeating West Cabarrus last week, kind of, bouncing back after that tough loss to Myers Park in week 1. For AC Reynolds, they've got a new quarterback that's in their system. But, when you're going up to AC Reynolds, it's always tough. They play well at home. But I think Coach Seidel is going to have a good game plan. And I like the fact that they're coming off of a victory, so they're coming in there with confidence. I like J.M. Robinson to win the game in a close one. If you ask me to pick it, which you didn't, but I did anyway. But I think that is definitely a good game. Let's see. James Barrier says, "What about Central Cabarrus and Mount Pleasant this week?" Yeah, that's another interesting one. Central Cabarrus coming off of the overtime loss to Northwest Cabarrus, and we talked about it last week. That's a rival game, and every time Central and Northwest get together, it ends up being a classic football game, and it was another one last week. Mount Pleasant, they lost to Carson, which I didn't see that one coming. That was a little surprising, but Carson does have some dynamic ability with their running back, Damon Broussard. He's really a player, and I saw he had a good game against them. So this one can be really good. It could be another overtime game, honestly, with the way these teams match up. Obviously, there's going to be some fired up, feelings in this one because it's a county rivalry, and we had, some players, change teams in the offseason. So that always brings another element into it. But that's another good call right there. I like that game. I'll have eyes on that game this week. I don't know where that game's being played, but that's a good one. Let's see here. Chris Hawk says AC Reynolds has a number 7 that's dynamic. I'm not up on my AC Reynolds players, unfortunately, but they always seem to keep somebody. They had that running back, Max Guest, for the longest time, who was a dynamic running back. So they seem to keep somebody up there who is really, really good. Hence why it's always tough to play AC Reynolds. So, that's a good call right there. All right, so Mila Hunter is shouting out Garinger and Barry. Okay. I'm sure they appreciate that. So Barry and Rocky River is on our short list next week. Like I said, North Meck Hunter Hus is on the short list. I know where is it at? Kim Watts wants us to come out and watch Palisades. Palisades always welcomes us down there. But just as far as from where I live to where Palisades is, and then work being on Friday, it's kind of a tough logistical thing for this week. But I will see Palisades at some point this season. It probably won't be this Friday. I got to be honest. All right, so Mount Pleasant Central Comparison is at Central. Okay, good deal. Good deal. That'll be another nice home game for the Central fans. They got a good one last week, so they got another one this week. All right. So once again, for everyone watching this show, which it seems to be mostly parents tonight, reminder that the Queen City Senior Bowl registration is open. And then if you got a senior football player who would like to play in the game, they just need to go register for the game. The link is on my social media. I'll retweet it out after the show. But the eligible counties, Mecklenburg, Cabarrus, Union, Gaston, Cleveland, Iredell, and Rowan. And then we do reserve the right to take players outside of those schools on a case-by-case basis. Then if there are coaches interested in coaching, please let me know. But so far we have, let me look at the number real quick, because literally it was put out about 24 hours ago. We have 76 players who have already signed up in 24 hours. So it's off to a really good start. Typically, what we see with registration is it'll dip down because we leave it open for about 5 weeks until it gets closed. And then when we make the announcement it's going to close, everybody else kind of runs to sign up. So you do have, some time, but it's good to just go ahead and get it in so it's done, and then you don't have to worry about it. The big thing with the bowl game is, I say this every year, number one, it's not my game. So if you don't get selected, don't fuss at me. I'm just a partner in the process, okay? But number two, it helps a really good cause at the Metro School. And the Metro School is kind of forgotten in Charlotte, to be honest with you. But it's a school that educates kids with different types of, disabilities, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, whether, no matter what the designation is. That's where they go to school, and that's where they get educated. And they have all ages. It's not just high school kids or middle school kids. It's kindergarten all the way through early 20s, believe it or not. So it's really important that not only that, players sign up, but the awareness for what the game stands for is really important too. There are some all-star games or postseason bowl games that solely exist for the football purpose, and this is not one of them. This one really goes and helps those kids and those staff members, and it provides funding for the school, and it's really important. The funds last year helped fund some upgrades that were sorely needed for Metro School, and it's a really, really nice thing to be involved in. One of my favorite things is, seeing all the pictures and videos from when we go over to the school and visit those kids, because it really is their Super Bowl. It really is, cheerleaders get involved, bands get involved. Damon White, who's with the Alliance Sportsmanship Foundation, does an excellent job in, kind of putting all that stuff together for the bowl game and for the Metro School. So like they used to say on the radio all the time, it's a party with a purpose. So this is a bowl game with a purpose. So it's always good to be a part of something that's not just about football, but it's about, life and making things better. for people who may not necessarily be able to do that for themselves. So just keep that in mind. Okay. With that being said, we have reached the end of the show for Between the Lines. I promise next week we'll have better graphics that you guys can see. I'll talk with my graphics guy about that. Appreciate that feedback. Tomorrow will be Football Focus Weekly at 8 p.m., the show that you guys know exists. And we'll get into a lot more on that show. We'll talk about Pep Man's players. Those will be released here very soon on social media for the week 2. And talk about the big games this week. And we'll talk about the Dirty Dozen, our regional rankings, and maybe a couple more surprises. So on behalf of everybody who's not here, I'm the Pep Man, Matt Morrow. Thank you for watching Between the Lines, the in-depth view of high school football in the Charlotte metro area. Everybody have a good night. See you tomorrow, 8 p.m. Football Focus Weekly. Stay tuned for Pep Man's players on social media.